Hi, everyone. So we're still talking about conversations and relationships and why are relationships so hard sometimes? Thinking about this and, it's like, do we find ourselves constantly arguing with people or often arguing with people around us? And sometimes we just think, why are relationships so hard? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Cheryl Piper, Ascended Unity. You're only one thought away. And that's my tagline. And I like to talk about that and put it out there because really, our thoughts create our reality. And you're only one thought away from peace, joy, hope, all of those wonderful things. And we're going to talk about that a bit more as we get going. But let me know that you're out there. Put some likes. That would be great. Love the likes. Love the wows. And any comments that you can put in, I appreciate that. I'll try to respond and answer. I am here by myself. Oh, it looks like we're having a little bit of technical challenges. Things will, yeah, there we go. Things are smoothed back out again. And I just need to do a little bit of housekeeping here. So if you can just let me know that you're out there, that's great. Let me know where you're from. I'm also going to be doing something a little bit different today. I am going to be sharing a screen with you to be able to talk about some of the conversational intelligence things that I talked about in our last few broadcasts. So let me just, here we go. Oh. And here we go. Now we can go ahead and share that over, and I will hide that screen, open things up so I can share my screen with you soon. And this is going to be my first time sharing my screen. So I, just not really sure where I'm going to show up. So when I do that, if you can just type in the box or something and let me know what's going on, that would be great. Like I said, we are talking about conversational cocktails, which is the webinar I have coming up this Friday, February 2nd at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining. Just getting started here. And so that is kind of what we've been talking about the last few weeks in discussing conversations and how come it seems so hard sometimes, and we just not quite sure what's going on. So we're going to be delving into that deeper today. What I thought that we would talk about is I'm going to go ahead and do my screen share with you, but oh my goodness, now I can't find it. Like I said, I haven't done this yet. I really want you to be able to see what I'm talking about here. So I'm not quite sure where that went. All right, well, we're just going to talk. So I have what's called the conversational dashboard, and boy, it just comes in so much handier if I can show it to you. And just pause with me for a second, Lisa. It looks, oh, hi, Kim. Kim just joined. Pause with me, guys, for a second. I have not shared my screen yet on Facebook, and I just downloaded to be able to do that. And I practiced before I came on, and everything shared wonderfully. But now that button seems to be gone. And you know what? It's okay. I'll have to figure it out later. Let's just go ahead and chat. So what we're going to talk about today is the conversational dashboard. And what it looks like is it goes from red to green. And it talks about things along the way like, are you in a resistor state of mind? If you're in a resistor state of mind, that's when you're in that space where no matter what someone talks with you about, you just really resist that thought. You'll find every reason to prove it wrong, state how it's wrong. You're just in a very resistor state. And when that happens, it's that area when we were talking about last broadcast, that area of the brain called the amygdala. When the amygdala, oh my goodness, my words. When the amygdala has that amygdala hijack and we go into that protect mode, then our level of sight is really tightened up and we really aren't able to see different ideas or new ideas. We can be in that real resistor state. And so when we're talking with someone and we see that that's really what's going on, that they're in a really hard resistor state, then, you know, what we maybe would like to do is not try to get them all the way into, you know, creative thought. That's a huge jump. But the next level up on that chart is called skeptic. And so if you can move from resistor to where you're not interested in hearing anything that has to do with anything about that subject to skeptic, then at least when you're moving into that space of skeptic, you're starting to open the mind a bit more. You're moving yourself out of that threat protect mode by simply moving into a thought of, well, I don't know, you know, I'm gonna just I'm gonna, you know, be skeptical about that. That's why it's called the skeptic. But at least in that state of mind, you're not completely resisting every thought. You've stepped into a space of being a skeptic. So if something is said when you're in that state of mind that kind of resonates with you, then you will much more quickly move up that chart into creative thought. And so the next level up from that is called wait and see. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of times that you've been in conversations or you've been with people in conversations and you can see the look on their face. It's like a, well, and you can tell that's a more of a wait and see type of a thought process. And so that kind of sits really kind of right in the middle of that chart. And it's not all the way open in their thought process, but it is in a space of wait and see. And so once again, if something is said in the conversation that starts to resonate with you or resonate with them, if you're the one speaking, then they're going to be much more quickly moved up to that next level, which is called experiment. And so when you move to experiment, that's where you're actually willing to, well, you know, maybe let's try to look at this, or let's look at it this way, or what would it look like if, and that's kind of that experimenter space, because we're really opening our mind up more to that level of thought. And then, of course, past experimenter is where we move into that co-creating space, that space of inspirational thought, where we really do have that oxytocin going, which is what we talked about before, being the feel-good neurochemical. I call it the love drug. It's that's the chemical that's released in us when we do something kind for someone, when we go out of our way to just be kind, be compassionate, and that feeling that comes over us, that's oxytocin. That's the feeling. And so we all know what that is. We've experienced that. And so the more that we can move into a state of feeling or being in this way in our level of thought, the more we're going to be in a space of being able to have our minds open be open to creative thought, be open to ideas coming to us to inspire us, because that's what happens a lot of times is we have our minds opened up, and then all of a sudden this inspiration just dropped right into the middle of us, and we're like, wow, what about this? And we get this idea, and where did that come from? That comes from that space of being open and being open to having inspiration come to you. Because think about it, if we're down in that space of resistor and skeptic, our level of sight, it's not very broad. We're still in a pretty much of a protective, scanning, fear mode, because that's what happens when we go into that amygdala hijack. It really is fear. And sometimes fear can just be paralyzing, and you just don't even know how to move. Because remember what I said before about that amygdala hijack, we're going to do one of those four things. It's going to be fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And that all depends on who you're talking with. Because let's say that you're in a situation where you're talking to your boss or your manager, and they're just really coming at you with, stuff that is not kind, is really threatening to you and making you feel bad. Like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, and why did you do it that way? And I mean, just listen to the tone of my voice. When someone speaks to you in that way, that amygdala takes over and says, whoa, there's threats going on here. I need to protect. And so in that situation, being they're sitting with your boss, you may appease. And what that is, it looks like, is you're just nodding your head and agreeing, and they think you're agreeing with them. You're not really agreeing. You just don't want to deal with it. Sometimes this happens in situations with a spouse or with friends. You just don't want to deal with it, and you're just going to appease and yes, yes, yes. And so that's one of those four things that I mentioned that you go into with that amygdala hijack. And so, I wish I could show you this chart. Boy, I have got to figure this out. Well, you know what? I'm just going to read a little bit, because this chart is talking about ways to create that space that allows the mind to open when someone is in skeptic, when someone is in, oh, okay, Lisa, see you in a bit. When someone is in skeptic mode, when someone is in that full amygdala hijack of resistor. So what this is I'm just going to kind of read a little bit to you. If we, being the people who are speaking to them, can really show transparency, just really be able to be transparent with our conversation, with our thoughts, with our feelings, it helps to remove that level of threat. So focusing on something and sharing it with that person, because that shows that transparency. And then another thing is relationship. Determine what's important to someone else, and really being able to step into their shoes. When you can be transparent and then build that relationship of being able to step into someone's shoes, that trust starts to come back. And that's what we've been talking about with that amygdala hijack. Or are we in a space of co-creating? Difference being space of co-creating where the oxytocin is flowing. That's a state of trust. Where being in resistor and being in that amygdala hijack and cortisol is flowing, which is the stress hormone, that's a state of distrust. And so moving someone into that state of trust is so important to having the best conversation and communication with another person. So another area is understanding. Listen actively. Listen to connect. This is so important, because if you're listening to be right, which sometimes, and we've all been there, that's definitely a state of resistor. Listening for something to be wrong so that you can be right. Or are you listening to connect? So thinking about those things and being able to move into that state of co-creating and helping someone to move into that state of co-creating, we need to be listening to connect. And so what it is they're saying to us, we listen for things that we can connect with them. We can connect with a situation where we understand, and they know we understand. This is truth. This is authentic. This is not, if you try to do these things and you're not being authentic, people can tell that. They can tell that you're just, trying, and then they're going to be thrown right back into that amygdala hijack of distrust, because you're not being true to who you are, and people can sense that. So this is all about you putting your heart out there, you being kind, you being compassionate. And when you're in that state, people do respond. And it's much easier to bring them into that space to be able to have conversation with you. So, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I always like to talk around 15 minutes. It's been 16 and a half already. Have not gone through everything I wanted to chat with about today, but really wanted to talk about this conversational dashboard. And of course, in the webinar, I know I will be able to share my screen and talk with you, because that's easy. I've done that before, and there won't be any challenges there. So you guys will be able to see all of the charts that I'm talking about, all of the tools that are available to help in moving into that state of co-creation, getting that oxytocin flowing. So check out the link. I put the link in this post where you can register for the webinar, which again is this Friday, February 2nd, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And I'm Cheryl Piper, Ascended Unity. And remember, you really are only one thought away. Have a great day.